This is the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast with Greg Smith and Jay Foreman. Tell it to me straight up.
Hello, and welcome into the Straight Up Breakdown Podcast, proudly part of the Hale Varsity Network. I am Greg Smith here, and now I've got to try Oatly fake milk now because I guess I'm the only person that liked that commercial, friend.
I am Jay Foreman. I think I'm going to be the newest person to try TB12 avocado ice cream, considering how Tom Brady is beaten Father Time. So I need to get it rejuvenated. Man,
and it's funny you say that too, because I just saw a poll on Twitter from somebody that said, is Father Time still undefeated today? Yes or no? Which is funny because Tom Brady seems to have the only secret. So maybe we do all need to be eating avocado ice cream, as nasty as that sounds, because I'm not an avocado person. I did not get on that bandwagon. It's not my but we'll see. Is he the one with the special water, or was that Russell Wilson that had the special water?
I think that was Russell Wilson, but Tom Brady has been doing some unique stuff where he lifts weights, but his thing is about trying to make his muscles more elastic, and I guess to withstand the different, as you've seen Patrick Mahomes get bent up last night and almost tried to get bench pressed through the ground like from Ndamukong Suh. So maybe that's what you need to do, or what everybody else should be trying to do to get some longevity, not only in sports, but in life, to feel better.
Yeah, it's really interesting, too, because, we see this right now with Tom Brady, who I think the greatest quarterback ever. We see it in the NBA with LeBron James, arguably the greatest basketball player ever. Like, guys, actually at the same time as the Super Bowl yesterday, which is just bad timing for them, there was a tennis tournament going on, Serena Williams playing again. We've seen her career extended. So I feel like we are kind of we're in this golden age of icons being able to prolong their careers and be able to make it through and dominate longer. The one that's kind of unfortunate because it's just so many injuries caught up to him, and it happened again here recently, was Tiger Woods. We've kind of seen what kind of continued to happen with his back and whatnot. But we definitely are in this golden era where if athletes at elite, like iconic athletes, pay attention to their bodies and want to try to really make those sacrifices, they can make these primes last quite a bit longer now.
Yeah, and it is not only that, is that I think that they are welcoming the mental aspect of it, because the younger generation that's coming in is more all about the glitz of, what I can, run, or what I can be dynamic athletically, right? Where you think like even like an Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, even a little bit with Drew Brees, obviously Tom Brady, they know when they play that position that they're going to be head and shoulders literally above everybody else, and they continue to do it. So not only you got to take care of your body, but you got to make sure that you're mentally sharper than everybody else, because they have taken the stance of playing the quarterback is an art form. So when other people come in and, whether it's the RPO guy or the young, say like Darnold with the Jets, right? He was the guy that's going to be the next guy. Even Tua, is just as recent as last year, but they're thinking about, or would trade him for Deshaun Watson, and maybe he's not the franchise quarterback, right? They know these guys coming in are just fast. They've seen it before, and they just keep playing, and they get better physically and mentally. And there's so much science out there as far as your diet, how you train. I think the longer off season actually helped older guys like Brady, because they were able to let their bodies recover. It's not as taxing as far as going through all the mini camps and so forth and so on. And you got a little bit of rejuvenation of, getting the, I'll call it the New England turned their nose up at him and just let him go and didn't try to bring him back, which he wanted to come back not only 1 year, but 2 years. The second year in a row that they did that. And so he came back, and it worked out perfect. They had a talented roster down there to go with the quarterback. He's definitely aging, but he's aging gracefully. I mean, you look at his stats and the way he's played, especially from week 12 on, he's been lights out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to dive deep into the Super Bowl, because if you were living under a rock, there's no way you got here without knowing that Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl 31-9 last night in pretty dominating fashion. They dominated that game from start to finish, and we're going to dive some more into that. But first, I want to go ahead and get to one of our favorite topics that we start off the show with each week called Coach Speak, where we go over something that a coach, a player, or a talking head said, and we tell you what they really meant.
Coach Speak to Real Talk.
Now, this week comes courtesy of Tampa Bay Buccaneers rookie Antoine Winfield Jr., and I'm already laughing because I loved this last night. Winfield Jr. said this after the game about his taunting penalty that he got against Tyreek Hill late in the game. He said, "The taunting, man, that's something I had to do. When we played them earlier this season, Hill went off. He backflipped right in front of my face and gave me the peace sign. So it was only right that I gave him the peace sign right back to him. It felt amazing to be able to do that." So we know what he meant because he told us that it felt amazing to do it. But Jay, what was your reaction to that moment? And did you remember that Tyreek Hill kind of acted a fool in that game earlier in the season?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I remember that. And look, what goes around comes around. And the NFL players will find, and that's not a small thing, but generally NFL players will find the smallest thing to, motivate them and use it when they can. And that's the way it is. Those tables turn, boy, and they turn at the most inopportune time where maybe Tyreek Hill has been doing that for years. But
yeah.
And if you know, look, I've been knowing Antoine Winfield Jr. since he's been, duking in his diapers because I played with Antoine. He's one of the greatest teammates and one of the greatest football players I played with. So I know how he's built. He's a motivated kid. He's very, very competitive, and he's a football player before anything. And he takes the game serious. He's not going to be out there and back down from anybody, and he's not going to disrespect the game. So he felt disrespected. They felt like you heard the various players that they felt like the second half of that game that was more indicative of who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were and are. And so they knew that they could play with them, and they knew once they had the game over, obviously there was a chance that when Tyreek Hill missed that play, welcome back. Reality comes back to you and it smacks you in the face. Now, it's one of those things that you got to always be careful what you do. And when you're rubbing it into, professionals, faces, they will, find a little bit of a payback. And it was a full-fledged, fresh butt kicking, as my grandma used to say. And Kansas City, got brought back to reality. And I'm going to say this about Tom Brady. This is funny. And I was thinking about this. Look, Tom Brady sent Drew Brees into retirement. And he's like, well, you know what? I'm going to show you who the head man is. I would give a, different acronym for it. And then I'm going to play with your kids afterwards. Right. And just, just kill you with kindness after I just cut your heart out. Right.
Right.
Then he took it a step further. I beat Aaron Rodgers so bad that he announced he's engaged to a fiance nobody even knows about on national TV after winning the MVP. And then he just brought Patrick Mahomes back to reality and back to the drawing board. That's a bad boy right there when, that's going to send the proverbial GOAT of all time, supposedly, back to the lab and say, man, get your game right before you try to take over this throne. So Tom Brady's a bad boy, man. And I always say, look, he's one of those guys that, whether you call it the dog or whatever, but he will cut your heart out. And he is ruthless when he competes. And you saw it with Tyrann Mathieu. You've seen it throughout his career. He just has it. And one thing I will say this, and I'm going to tweet it out later, New England Patriots and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and all the fans of Tom Brady need to thank Lloyd Carr for screwing him over at Michigan for so many years that it's made him almost angry at the whole world because he's been disrespected, obviously through high school and all that stuff. But Tom Brady was better than everybody at Michigan, but you kept playing mind games with him. So he never forgot that. It was kind of like he has PTSD in a good way. And now the NFL is paying for all Lloyd Carr's head games and stupidity. So if you want to blame somebody for Tom Brady's success, and obviously Bill Belichick needs to thank him too, you just got to blame Lloyd Carr because he's the one that did this. He's the one that set forth the path of Tom Brady that had a dad bod at 22 and probably ran a 40 in forever.
He's
kicking
still
everybody. Yeah. Now he's running a 40 in, I don't know, 2 Christmases or something. But he said in this offseason he wants to get faster. That's the best thing about it. So you got to thank Lloyd Carr, man. I mean, he's the guy that set forth Tom Brady on this path to stardom, to the best of all time. And sometimes, you need somebody to do it, but it's definitely Lloyd Carr's fault. So I hate Lloyd Carr even more because they split the national championship with us 1 year. But then also that you made Tom Brady beat me so many times at the end of the game and put something in him that nobody else maybe had in him until you started messing with him at Michigan.
Yeah, and it's crazy too because you mentioned Tom Brady having that dog or being that kind of ultimate competitor, and you just had a feeling like even when the game started kind of slow, and I was kind of surprised that it started that way with the different offenses and how potent those offenses were, but you saw, and you just kind of Brady was not going to panic though. Like that was a situation where you knew that eventually he was going to get that thing right and they were going to get humming. And you mentioned it kind of like Brady isn't doing it the same way as maybe that season, of course, where like threw the 50 touchdowns and that Randy Moss year and they were just high flying all over the place even when they lost that year. Like it's different with what he's doing now because he just seems so efficient. Like you can't picture many times last night when he got either a second opportunity because of a dumb Chiefs penalty or a bad call, whichever way you want to say it. And there were enough dumb penalties and dumb things the Chiefs did that I don't think you can just solely blame the refs. But at the same time, Tom Brady took advantage of all of those, right?
Right.
So like, we would have a penalty and then boom, rip your heart out, score a touchdown, throw a dart in the back of the end zone to Gronk, right? Like make a play to give them an extra first down. Okay, here comes another touchdown on your head right after that. Like it was just like every opportunity, and this happens every once in a while where you just see it coming, where every opportunity that he got, he was going to make the most of it. And he was locked in last night. And you could see it a little bit in pregame where it felt like he was one step short of saying he was guaranteeing a victory because something happened with that game plan that Tampa Bay had where they felt extremely confident about what they had going into that game.
Let's break that down.
Yeah, they did. And, the one thing I also say, I said it last week, that a lot of it's going to come down to Bruce Arians if he can get out of his own way. Right. And really, since week 12, he got out of the way and let Byron Leftwich actually take over. And that's where the offense actually became more explosive. You look at it, throughout all playoffs, I think it's been the first time in Super Bowl history that they scored 30-plus points. A team scored 30-plus points. That's explosive offense, right? Yeah, so that's also, and then defensively, like I said, from that second half, the way that they played Kansas City, they took a lot of confidence. It's just like what you just mentioned when Brady's threw 50 touchdowns, they were undefeated. The Giants, right? They took the Patriots to the last play. Well, they got confidence from that. And then when they played in the Super Bowl, it was a different story. Kind of the same type of deal where Brady took a little bit of kind of like the Giants. We're going to beat you up physically and run the ball, hit you with play action passes, no turnovers, and our defensive line is just going to whoop your tail. Well, let's look all the way back to when Brady beat Mahomes 2 years ago. It's the same type of game plan. Brady knows how to beat you in different ways. That's why he is the greatest quarterback. He can go out and throw for a ton of yards and win and do that a whole year and win a Super Bowl. He can play small ball, which he did early in his career. He can do a little bit of both. And then he can just kind of facilitate and control the whole game on how he plays quarterback. You know what I'm saying?
That's the part to me that honestly impresses me the most out of all of the stuff with Brady. To me, it's his ability to be able to do those various things and be totally fine with it, right? Because I don't think every quarterback would be okay with, hey, I'm used to being high flying, throwing all these passes around and scoring touchdowns and getting glory, and then all of a sudden being kind of worried about that label of the game manager or the facilitator. I don't think everybody is built that way to do that.
No, and they talked about Brady walking around the whole field and taking pictures with everybody's family and their friends and stuff like that, right? And then you hear about him in the locker room that he's just one of the guys.
Right.
That's how he plays. And I've been on teams where quarterbacks have that ego where, say you have family in town, you just want a quick autograph where they wouldn't do it, or that this star player that's not one of the guys. Brady's one of the guys. He's legendary, talking about how much beer he can drink, right? Even though he's really, really healthy, which probably, helps him, process beer, not maybe get so drunk or whatever, but he's legendary when, the few times that he lets loose, that he gets down with the guys. That's how he is. He's not. I mean, of course, every successful person or athlete's going to have an ego, right? And have confidence in themselves, but he's not arrogant, right? And he has a ton of confidence in himself, and he builds that into his team. He's one of the guys that's no fakeness, and he is who he is, and he's developed over time. And he learned it probably with New England. Nobody's bigger than the team. You're a part of the puzzle, or you're a piece of the puzzle. And that's what's helped him go to another organization and brought that winning attitude and uptick the expectations twofold. And everybody, encompassed it. They were okay with it, and they bought into it. And so, Tom Brady's a unique leader. When you look at leadership, that's what, if you're looking for a quarterback, right? Whether it's at, let's say, I call college football professional sports. I call NFL entertainment, right? So if you're looking for a quarterback and leadership quality, that's what you need to look for. What Tom Brady has. Is he one of the guys? Is he willing to put the team before himself? And can he be like a chameleon? Can he throw for 400 yards if I need him? Or can he throw for 120 when I need him to do it? And then can he affect the game in all three phases? And when you get a guy like that, he's going to be a guy that's going to win you more games than not. And you're going to be winning bigger games more than you're going to lose them. And he's made it into an art form, and it ain't going anywhere. If Tom Brady went to the Bears, the Jets or something, they would play better. Now, would they meet? Obviously you need talent around him. And when he's got those offensive weapons and they brought in some guys, I mean, it's obviously easier. But when you think about it, they would play better because he knows how to play the game. And that's what's so funny is that these guys that every year you hear about, like the quarterback from BYU and all these other guys, it's all a crapshoot. But all these scouts and stuff are trying to rewrite the cliff notes or rewrite the history of how to play quarterback. And that's the one position that you can't change because you have to play the position to excellence. You don't have to be an excellent athlete in order to play that position. It's not, it's not necessarily about arm strength. It's not about height, weight, speed. You have to be able to play the position of quarterback. And it's hard to do right now because it's not being taught at the younger levels. So that's why you see older quarterbacks playing so much longer because they were taught how to play the quarterback position effectively. You get guys coming in now that are just, kind of playing the position and everything else kind of goes along with it. And if you, hit a lottery ticket, then you get a good 5 years out of them. Tom Brady's been doing this bad boy is going to be on 20 some years. It ain't getting any, ain't slowing down at all. And so the league is in trouble.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm curious with this, and I don't know if we could say it's about to be a run for Tampa Bay or what it is. This period of time for Tampa Bay right now, as long as they can keep things kind of together, they should be in the hunt and if you're in the hunt and you have that guy at quarterback, then you'll take it, right? It's kind of like, as you were saying that, it kind of actually reminded me of LeBron going to the Lakers in a way where we talk about Tom, if he went to the Jets, like he would make them better. Like the Lakers have a better history than say the Jets. And so it's different that way. But those guys didn't know how to win when LeBron went there, and then they completely changed the roster as well. Like Tampa had to make some tweaks to get that going, but you knew that it was just a matter of time because how those guys operate and how they will bring guys along with them. But real quick, the one thing that I wanted to make sure we got to, and we gone 20 minutes without mentioning the Huskers that won.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I want to go to with the defense. So, like, you had three Huskers or former Huskers with Sue, Levante David, who I'm happy got his due finally, and then Khalil Davis getting his Super Bowl ring as well. Great to see those guys all on defense, all part of that front seven for Tampa Bay that were just wrecking havoc last night. They held the Chiefs to 350 yards of total offense. I mean, the game plan that Todd Bowles put together, and we talked earlier, we started the show talking about kind of Tyreek Hill and what happened, what he did to the Bucs in that game that they played during the regular season where he hit them for 13 catches for 269 yards and 3 touchdowns. He didn't come close to sniffing that last night. They made some great adjustments when it came to how they were bracketing both Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. But then also to be able to do that, and this is the thing that impressed me probably the most about the Bucs defense, is yes, they double team those guys, especially Tyreek Hill, basically every play to take them out of the game. But you'll be able to speak to this better, of course, but like the ability, though, and faith that showed in the other guys that are left out on islands is incredible. Because then when you're not doubling Travis Kelce and you basically have to tell Lavonte David, hey, you're 9 or 10, I want you to go out there and guard one-on-one the best tight end in football, and him to do that very well. Like, I can't say enough about what that defensive game plan was. And I wish they could have found a way. And I know Brady, he's deserving, but I wish they could have found a way to have a defensive MVP coming out of that game. You had to have loved seeing the defensive play from Tampa Bay last night.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, look, I'm happy for Ndamukong Suh, to win. I mean, look, he was up in Detroit on some, let's just say some real lean teams, right? Up there in Detroit. Right. Just being nice. And then Lavonte David, same, putting up great numbers kind of under the radar. How many times when the Pro Bowl, votes come out, how does he not make it, right? And, finally he's gotten his just due. And the great thing about it, he had a little bit of hamstring injury. He obviously came out and said he was going to play, but stepped up to the challenge and locked Kelce down. Yes, Kelce had 10 catches, 133 yards. I'm talking about one-on-one with Lavonte David. Lavonte David not only made the tackles when he needed to, he won the possession, the tip balls, the pass breakups. He did a phenomenal job. And Ndamukong Suh had a sack and brought the pressure up the middle. And Davis is able to go from, losing here as a Husker to go to win a championship. Now he's playing with house money. He's obviously, I think he's surprised a lot of people throughout the whole year how good he was and is. And so I'm happy for them. But then I'm really happy for, the defense of Tampa Bay. It would have been really good for either Lavonte David to get it, Shaq Barrett, Brady, hey, hey, I'm going to come with you, kind of like he did with Malcolm Butler, right? Remember when they beat Seattle? Or he could say, you know what, I'm going to give this thing to Todd Bowles. I've been to Disney World too much. I ain't seen my family in 12 days because they let him prepare for it. I'm going to send somebody else. That would have been really, really good. Or they could have had a co-MVP because it was definitely deserving. And it was. I'm really happy for Lavonte David, for a guy that I will say this, only playing here for 2 years, you kind of be like, oh, well, where does he fit in Nebraska's history, as far as linebackers? I think that right now he's probably, I'd say he's the best linebacker to play here, straight up, from what he did in college. And I think he's the best. That's just my opinion. I don't see anybody better. And, it's just my opinion. Does it mean anything? No, but I just think, I've studied Nebraska players. He's legit. He's not, all his stats that he's gotten aren't the JOPs. And there's been some guys that have played here, have 8 tackles. And, you watch the film, you think he got 8 tackles. Next thing you know, he's got 15, right? Everything he's got, he's earned. And so I'm really, really happy for him to get it. And also, guess what? He's a free agent, right? I think he's been 9 years in the game. So it'd be interesting if Tampa brings him back. They should bring him back. And so if not, there's going to be people out there that are going to pay a premium for Lavonte David, because now he's opened the door for a lot of small linebackers, even though the league has been kind of transitioning to this. Now, instead of looking for the safety position to deal with these tight ends, now that this is what can happen if you have a linebacker that's physical at the point of attack and can cover space and has good ball skills. And that's what Lavonte David is, and he did last night.
Yeah, and it's good too, because there's only so many guys like this, and probably just a handful like Lavonte David level around the league. But what they were able to do defensively, because he could handle Travis Kelce, handle with air quotes, but stay in it with him to allow to free up that safety to be able to do other things, was just so helpful. But I also think that Shaq Barrett had such a great game last night.
Right.
It's funny because those. I didn't think, and maybe this is probably my bad on kind of looking at the game and kind of predicting it. I didn't think that Kansas City would struggle as much with pass protection after losing those two offensive linemen. I just thought the offense would just keep on humming along. And obviously, we see that you get to a point, man, and this happens. It feels like it happened for like a 5-year stretch. It happened to Green Bay every year, where their offensive line was being held together by duct tape by the end of the year. And Aaron Rodgers out there running for his life. And then people are like, Aaron Rodgers can't win the big one. I'm like, not necessarily. He just out there running for his life. And I hope that we don't get to the point to where when people look at this game years from now and they're just looking at the box score, that they don't think that Patrick Mahomes cost them this game. Because my man had some of the like craziest incompletions you are ever going to see. That one where he was like horizontal with the ground,
right?
The ball, and it was late in the game, and it hit the guy in the face mask. There was one actually early in the game that Tyreek Hill should have caught. To be honest,
hit him out the face mask. You know, I mean, those are just But here's what people don't understand: there's 2 or 3 guys around them when they were completing those passes. And obviously, look, Patrick Mahomes has not been under that type of pressure maybe in his career, right?
Not since Texas Tech.
Yeah, right. But you gotta think that though there wasn't anybody around when they had to make those catches in the season. They would catch it, just kind of walk in the end zone. So look. I mean, as much as people are going to look at it and say the offensive line, they're still professionals now. They just got their butt kicked. That's all there is to it. They got flat out whipped. Kansas City didn't look. They didn't look sharp. I mean, when you line up off sides, you jump off sides on a field goal, give them another first down. All their penalties were majority. There was a couple of calls that they got as far as the pass interferences. They were kind of touchy. Maybe the one on Honey Badger in the end zone, but all the other ones, those were legit. And then the funny thing about it, the one holding call that they got, I think on the interception, there was an even worse holding call on the other receiver on the other side of the field. So that lets you know that those were physical penalties, that you were getting beat. And then the mental errors as well. That's just, sometimes you just don't have it. They didn't look sharp. I don't know whether they were distracted, overconfident, or just flat out just wasn't their night. They just did not look good. I think also in the game plan, they didn't I think Kansas City thought that they could just come in and throw it all over the place, right? And then when that didn't happen, they didn't adjust. I didn't think that they ran the ball effectively or enough to slow down that pass rush, because they had some good runs. But then Tampa Bay tightened up a little bit and they just went away from it. I think the screen game was eliminated by the speed of their linebackers and the speed of their defensive line. So that's huge in Kansas City's playbook. And so once you kind of shut down the perimeters and had 2 safeties, they ran like a lot of cover 2. Cover 3, and just had guys playing top down because the middle of the field was locked down and the outside was locked down by their speed of their linebackers. It was a tough go around, and you eliminated Tyreek Hill even though he had 73 yards. So there wasn't 7 catches, 73 yards. That's just 10 yards. That's good. That's a good right. He hit a team up for 250 in the first half this year, and then when you make Travis Kelce have 10 catches for 133 yards. Again, that's a good day at the office, along with the targets that he's had that Levante David single-handedly eliminated. It was a good day at the office. And I'm not going to even, shortchange Devin White either. Those 2 guys came.
A great play.
Those 2 guys should have won the MVP. That would have been really, really good, I think, for the whole idea of that Super Bowl. I mean, them 2 guys played kind of like Rod Martin did back in the day for the Raiders, and they had all those interceptions. They came to play, and they were not playing no games with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't know how long it'll last, because they got only $14 million in cap space, and you got to sign Gronk back. Levante David, I think, is the biggest one. I think Sue's a free agent. A couple other guys. So how they can piece that together, maybe restructure some stuff, and be able to make another run is going to be interesting to see. So maybe they can extend Brady and kind of give him a little bit lower cap number because he, I know it was a 2-year deal at the beginning, but I'm sure Tampa Bay wants him around for at least a couple more years.
Yeah, and so you mentioned about how like the Chiefs it seemed like they basically abandoned the run, and you thought they abandoned it too early. So then the kind of effect of that is then Tampa was able to really pin their ears back. And from ESPN stats and info, Patrick Mahomes was pressured on 29 out of 56 of his dropbacks, which is the most of any quarterback in Super Bowl history. And on the flip side of that, Tom Brady was only pressured 4 out of the 30 times that he dropped back, was actually the lowest of his Super Bowl career. That's crazy. Like, I mean, that's also the game, right? Like, I think that there is exactly, what it was. And it's funny, like, kind of playing off of a little bit about Brady, because you mentioned Gronk and him being a free agent. Did you see yesterday that the touchdown catch, I think it was the first one that he had, actually put him into second place on touchdowns all time in the Super Bowl with, I think, 13 or 14. And I'm like, oh, man, that means I was like, okay, that's great. Like, that's really cool. But I was like, oh, he must be knocking on the door of first place. And then you remember that dude, Jerry Rice, is out there. And Jerry Rice is in first place for all-time Super Bowl touchdown catches with 22.
Yes.
There are receivers that played whole careers that didn't have 22 touchdowns.
There's receivers that haven't had 14.
Right.
So,
Bowl alone, man, those Jerry Rice records are just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jerry Rice is like stupid. It's like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, obviously, until that gets beat. It's like, man, that dude was. I mean, I don't think people really realize how much work Jerry Rice was putting in for how long. So, I mean, it's as dominant as Gronk has been. And then also, I think that I don't know if you got to think the runs that New England has been on with Gronk and Brady. Obviously, Gronk wasn't there at the beginning, but they're always in the AFC Championship and so forth and so on. And you got to think that, the 49ers got knocked off a couple of times by Dallas and upset a couple of times. So they weren't able to, have that extra game or two, kind of like New England has. But, Gronk, here's the funny thing about it. As the season went on, he looked fresher and looked more explosive. He looked phenomenal last night. And he looked fresh. He looked explosive. And look, you could say obviously he's lost a step or whatever you want to say, but homeboy can still catch. He's still 6'6", 6'7", 250 pounds, and he's still got those big
body position,
catch radius, and he's got those big old hands. And it looks like he got like two snow gloves on. That's how big his hands are. And he catches those bad boys, and he can still run after the catch, and it's timely. And this is what people don't understand is that those two know how to win. They know how to prepare to win. They know how to do what they need to, their bodies and minds to get ready to win. And also a pretty cool thing is what people don't understand about Brady. And this is when you talk about leadership, right? He went in there and pretty much put his reputation on the line for Antonio Brown because he sees something in Antonio Brown from a personal standpoint. And Brady has the ultimate respect, right? That makes you, it's almost like when Coach Osborne walks in the room, it makes you tighten up. And when he says something or he says something to you that he thinks you're not doing right, you know what, he's right. Same with Brady with Antonio Brown. He did it with New England, thought that he should still be there, was actually upset that New England cut him, brought him back, right? Antonio Brown needed 45 catches to get a $250,000 bonus, made sure he got the shovel pass, right? The fact that they won him a Super Bowl, he got another $750, right? And then you haven't heard a peep out of Antonio Brown. Everybody that said he's been the best teammate, Brady lets him, kind of stay in his guest house or whatever. And then also he got him a touchdown on Honey Badger after Brady said, "We coming right after you," right? People don't. I mean, here's the funny. People don't understand about Brady. He is a stone cold killer. You understand? I'm telling you, man. He is ruthless when it comes to competing. Hey, I know he's a handsome dude, got a supermodel wife and all that stuff, and he's got that, all shucks. I'm telling you, he is ruthless. Yeah, when he competes.
Though you saw it when he was going back and forth with the Honey Badger, though. Right. It's really like because we get it watching this dude for this long, and you've seen it enough come out. But I do think that sometimes people see him and they're like, oh yeah, he's just he's the old guy now. He was the pretty boy, but no, he got that in him.
Oh,
you don't get to this level and this consistent without having that killer in you.
Right. And that's the funny thing about it. When you think about Brady, I remember playing against him or a couple times, one in Buffalo and obviously one in Houston. I mean, I hit this man 2 or 3 times. I tried to put him through the ground, or, I thought I did, and, mushed him in the face, tried to scratch his eyes out, and he kept coming. I mean, I'm telling you, he got better after that. And then obviously it just keeps getting better and better. And he's a guy, Brady's one of those guys you want to always be like nice to when you're playing. Obviously you want to destroy him, but once you can see once he flipped that switch.
Yeah, you don't want to give him nothing extra.
You don't want to give him nothing extra. And also don't think he wasn't motivated by everybody saying that Patrick Mahomes is the greatest of all time and Tom Brady just got passed by. Don't think that
this was going to be the passing of the tour.
Yeah. The old GOAT versus new GOAT. Don't think that he was. Look, there's a reason why his family wasn't around for 12 weeks or 12 days. All right. He was at home in Tampa. He said, listen here, y'all need to go out to Cali. I got to handle this business. I'll see you afterwards. Don't think that he wasn't focused on this. And it does take a family effort. I mean, when you think about Tom Brady, you know, most wives wouldn't be, okay, well, you're sending, we're going away. We ain't going to see you. They're like, hey, for the greater good, we got to let, we got to let dad go do his thing. And that's a hard thing to do, but he needed to focus. He was highly motivated. They're all in on it. And they know that once football's over that, Tom Brady's going to be, the Super Bowl champ at home. But look, man, I mean, that dude is next level. And you're not going to see another Tom Brady forever. Patrick Mahomes is going to get there. Deshaun Watson is trying to get there. I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City wins it next year, but I think it's a little bit different now when you're the hunted versus the hunter, and you're not surprising people. I think when you look at Kansas City this year, they played in a lot more closer games than they had, and that means people are getting a little bit closer. I think I always point back to the Cleveland game. That's a game Cleveland, if they can't, Cleveland showed up to that game happy to be there because they beat Pittsburgh in the playoffs and didn't compete for the first half. And then by the second half, they were like, man, we can actually win this game. And then they just ran out of time and they got out coached at the end. And so right then and there, if I'm a team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's nothing against the Cleveland Browns, I'm thinking like, man, NFL players watch games and they're really realistic, right? They know when a team dominates a game. A team can dominate a game and win by like 10 points and knowing it should have been by 20 or 30. Or a team can win by 20 or 30 in the NFL and know that the game is a lot closer and that you could beat this team. And so I think Tampa Bay took a lot of confidence, obviously, looking at how Kansas City ended the season, looking at how they played them, and also took confidence of the teams that they were able to beat on the road in the playoffs. They were more battle tested, I think, more hungry, and they had a little bit more edge, and it showed last night in a big way.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And it'll be curious to see where both of these teams go, because Kansas City now is also in that spot where they're going to have to finagle the cap a little bit to try to figure it out. Because there are some high priced guys there now that obviously Mahomes and his deal, Tyreek and his deal, Kelsey is on big one. So you got to figure out how to keep that thing rolling. But that's why you also have, what is Patrick Mahomes, 25 the current, present, and future of the franchise. He's got to be able to lift those guys up. And all great quarterbacks run into that. Brady didn't in a way because he took less money for so long. But Aaron Rodgers has dealt with this. Russell Wilson has definitely dealt with it.
Yeah.
Up in Seattle too. So we'll see, but that's where the fun comes in for Kansas City GM. This is where he starts to earn that money when you got to piece this thing together and everybody's off those rookie deals. Now, every week we end the show with a segment that we call Put 'em on Blast, where we basically put somebody on blast for something they did or said.
Put them on blast.
My favorite segment of the week. And this week, I am going with the Detroit Lions, the whole organization. I don't know if y'all caught this. There was a report, and I think it was actually yesterday, kind of leading up to the Super Bowl, so it might have got lost in the shuffle, where Adam Schefter reported that when trade talks began between the Rams and the Lions, the first player that Detroit requested in a trade for Matthew Stafford was Aaron Donald. The Rams, to their credit, the Rams did not hang up on them. They just told them that it's not happening, and then they figured out the eventual compensation where the Lions acquired a pair of first-round picks and quarterback Jared Goff in the trade back on January 31st. But come on, man, I got to put them on blast. Listen, on one hand, I will give them a little bit of credit for going out there, putting it all on the table and saying, hey, we're going to aim high, and see where we get. But you're not going to get the 3-time Defensive Player of the Year for Matthew Stafford. Like, Stafford has been nice in Detroit, but that's kind of crazy. So I will go ahead and put Detroit on blast, even though you got to a little bit respect the guts that they had to even ask for that before getting hung up on.
Yeah, but you know what? Look, if you don't ask for it, you ain't going to get it, right? So you got to say, ask for the moon and or ask for the stars and maybe you get the moon or whatever the saying is. You can't fault them for asking. But you got to put them on blast and think for the fact that you think Matthew Stafford is that type of quarterback or that dude that you can even, with a straight face, get Aaron Donald. I think that was just a negotiation tactic. Say, hey, let's ask for Aaron Donald, knowing that we can get Jared Goff. That's an interesting trade just because of the familiarity of the GM, and he came from obviously the Rams. And how Jared Goff would do and how that relationship with Jared Goff with the contract and his play deteriorated over two years. You got to think 2 years ago they were in the Super Bowl.
Right.
He didn't play well.
It happened to him in such a short amount of time.
Right. And so, with Detroit and you think Matthew Stafford, where it was weird that, he went from I'm going to stay. And they got talent in Detroit. Don't sleep that. Don't think that Detroit doesn't have talent.
I also like that GM.
Yeah, I like their GM that they got. They got talent up there, or at least, with Stafford, I thought they had talent. They got Marvin Jones. They got 2 receivers, got a couple running backs, a decent offensive line, and a young defense that at times played good. I think Patricia wasn't the good hire for them. I think he alienated a lot of guys. And so that happens sometimes. And so that's, 3 years of wasted time and a wasted career of Matthew Stafford. So hopefully Detroit gets it right. It's great that you put him on blast for asking for Aaron Donald, but I'm also want to put them on blast because they were also called Carolina to try to get Teddy Bridgewater and their pick for Matthew Stafford. I think that I'm going to put them on blast because I don't know what film they watched with Matthew Stafford. Maybe it was a different league and a different film, maybe a different cut that I've watched in all 22. But they're going around asking for, a king's ransom, for, a couple, rubles of fool's gold. But, you can't fault them for asking. Somebody's dumb enough to give it to them. They got it.
They got it. Yeah,
they get it. So you can't fault them for it. So you can't put them on blast too much. But to ask for Aaron Donald, you have to put them on blast. But it definitely is comical. Now back to me, who I'm going to put on blast. I think I'm going to put, let's just say guesstimation 20 to 22 GMs throughout the league. And I read the report last night about when Tom Brady was a free agent. There was 2 teams, 2 that were actually serious about signing him. San Diego Chargers, which is interesting because they had the Hurrdat, who obviously was phenomenal this year, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's actually about 20 teams because you think there's probably 10 legitimate quarterbacks, 2 teams that were serious about signing them. So that leaves you with 20 teams. So 20 GMs out there, all you guys. That's from the Washington Redskins, the Miami Dolphins, to the Minnesota Vikings, the Chicago Bears. I don't care about the Philadelphia Eagles, the Denver Broncos, and definitely the Los Angeles Raiders that had the cap space to get him. I'm putting all y'all on blast because this guy here walked into a team that hadn't been in the playoffs since 2007, has the most, or the lowest winning percentage in NFL history, that means your whole organization is used to losing. And in 1 year, in a limited offseason, takes them to the Super Bowl. And you guys are sitting down around there looking at the same chumps that are not only cashing your checks, taking snaps at quarterback, can't play a lick. And this is a guy that has been not only a proven commodity, let's just say over 2 years, right? Because, like when you hear people when they buy businesses, oh, I need 4 years of returns or, 4 years of, success, right? This guy has 20 years of success. 20 years of success, just lost in the AFC Championship, right? And you're sitting up there, you're going to be looking at Sam Darnold, I don't know who, Drew Lock up at Denver, Trubisky at Chicago. You're trying to tell me you can't finagle your salary cap or trade some guys to get Tom Brady? And so I'm putting all those 20 GMs or so-called GMs on blast. Some are probably unemployed now maybe employed somewhere or other places, or going to be on one of these networks as some smart guys trying to, break down the NFL draft. But I'm putting all you guys on blast because you guys could have very easily had Tom Brady. Maybe not a Super Bowl, but you could definitely not be at the top end of the draft right now if you had Tom Brady. So I'm putting all you guys on blast.
Yeah, and I would actually it's crazy that thinking about the Bears specifically for me, it's like they've been so much better figuring out a way to get Tom Brady with the exact same pieces that they had with that defense, with just having Tom Brady instead of Trubisky and whatever else mess they running out there. Like, it would have just been such a better situation. But it's crazy because watching the Bucs and watching the Chiefs in a way, all of that is just like PTSD for me as a Bears fan, because one, you could have had Tom Brady. Obviously, they could have drafted Patrick Mahomes, but the one that we don't even talk about anymore is they hired Mark Trestman over Bruce Arians.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah. Remember that Bruce Arians, when he was out of coaching and he could have gone anywhere at that point, the Bears could have hired him then and chose Mark Trestman. So it's just been a comedy of errors around there at Old Hallis Hall for years now. They deserve everything they're getting. One day we're just going to have to luck into something good.
Yeah. I mean, look, the Bears are a storied. The one thing about the Bears that's funny, no matter if it's a good year or bad year, they're always going to have D, right? Yeah, they're always going to be able to play D in Chicago. But the one thing that's hurt them, I'm thinking back to Kyle Orton, Rex Grossman, all these different teams with all the players they've had on defense, they just can't get the quarterback right. And look, for whatever reason, you got to think Bruce Arians is probably the Caucasian version of Eric Bieniemy. You remember how many times in offenses that he's led, and he would always get passed over for a job, and then finally. When the coach got sick in Indianapolis, he went on that run with Andrew Luck. They were like, actually, he can be a head coach. Right. And then he got his job. Then he went down to Arizona and had some success. And then it's the same thing's happened with Eric Bieniemy. He's been passed over. He hasn't got a chance yet. But it's just funny when you go back and look at all the organizations that kind of turn their nose up at Bruce Arians, right? You got to think about that. And then how many coaches they've had since, and how many failed quarterback head coach relationships they had since then. When you look at Bruce Arians, everywhere he's been, he's had, good success with his quarterbacks. Even with Jameis Winston, the only thing that Jameis Winston didn't do well was able to protect the ball, and he wasn't as polished as Tom Brady. That's honestly got true. But Bruce Arians and him still produced.
Many interceptions,
yeah. They still produced on offense, like scoring touchdowns and yards. They just didn't. The interceptions were bad. But so it's interesting how the NFL and time will tell these decisions, and then it messes up a whole organization, not only for when you have them, have that, bad hire and bad quarterback. Like, think of the Philadelphia Eagles. It messes it up for like years afterwards. And sometimes it takes a while for them to recover. And you just look at Tampa Bay before Tony Dungy got there. And then afterwards, Gruden did obviously win the Super Bowl, but then they had to kind of recalibrate themselves. And it took a little while because you didn't have the quarterback, you didn't have the defense. And then you kind of went through some different coaches and leadership. And then it took a little while before Jason Light, the former Nebraska Husker, Nebraska Westland guy, came down there and got it right and won a Super Bowl, with good leadership. So, good GMs make good decisions. It's probably easy for him. Hey, look, I'm going to fall into Tom Brady and win. Tom wanted to come there, and a year later, you won a Super Bowl.
That's right. More Nebraskan guys coming through in the clutch. So go ahead. We're going to leave it there for this week. Subscribe to the podcast everywhere you listen to them. Rate us. Leave us a 5-star review. If you leave 4, I'm inclined to think you're a hater, and nobody wants that. Make sure that you are checking out the other podcasts on the Hail Varsity Network. The Mind Your Own podcast, Varsity Club, More to It, and the Hail Varsity Radio Show. Make sure you're also checking out the Hail Varsity YouTube page. We'll have a new video up there this week as well, and this show. We also have an email at straightupbreakdown@hailvarsity.com, and you can catch us on Twitter at Greg Smith HB and at Foreman5644. We will catch you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.